First and foremost, I want to give honor, glory, and praises to the Most High Yahweh, and do so in the name of His only begotten Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. I also want to give a shalom to the Akim, so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, the true Israelites of the Bible. I also want to give a mighty shalom to the elders, the apostles. That's been this truth for many years, pushing in sincerity. Shalom to you all. Now, I pretty much wanted to, pretty much get into this lesson, self-righteousness, to piggyback, on us, condemning the two-thirds. I did a lesson on that not too long ago on how we need to humble ourselves and conduct ourselves a particular way, and to deal with one another, right, in meekness, and have mercy with one another, right. And this lesson is pretty much a reverse of that, how to deal with the Lord, right. Because what happens is, like I said, the other lesson that I did, pretty much condemning the wicked, is we get caught up so much in our righteousness that we feel like we deserve certain things and the wicked doesn't. And I was pretty much saying, like, we got to be humble because the Lord could easily take that spirit off that, off of that person and make them righteous and make you wicked and take you out this thing. So, we definitely got to deal with the Lord in meekness and humbleness, right? And deal with one another the same way. But this lesson is pretty much on how to deal with the Lord. And we're going to use Job's experience, pretty much to, just self-reflect on how we should conduct ourselves. And again, we're not justified by our works. The Lord justifies us, right? So let me just kick it off with Job chapter 1, verse 1. It says, there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job. And the man was perfect and upright and one that feared God and eschewed evil. So Job was perfect. It said he eschewed evil, meaning, he abstained from wickedness. And verse 2, and there were born unto him 7 sons and 3 daughters. So Job had children. Jump down to verse 18. While he was yet speaking, there came another also saying, thy sons and thy daughters were eating and drinking wine in their elders' brother's house. So who's speaking right now is Job's servants, right? Pretty much telling them about a disaster that just took place, verse 19. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they were all dead. I am escaped alone to tell thee. So, his servant survived. That's why he's able to tell the story. Verse 20. So God killed Job's kids. Then Job arose and rent his mantle and shaved his head and fell upon the ground and worshipped. So Job humbled himself after the Lord, killed his kids, and said, naked came I out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Verse 22. And all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly. So, after God destroyed, Job's children, Job humbled himself. He didn't blame the Lord or charge him, for taking their life, because most likely they were involved in wickedness to get that judgment pronounced on them. So let's keep reading the next chapter. Job chapter 2, verse 1. Again, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came amongst them to present himself before the Lord. So the sons of God in this context is dealing with, I'm pretty sure, the angels, right? Verse 2. And the Lord said unto Satan, from whence comest thou? And Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that feareth God and eschewed evil? And still he holdeth fast his integrity, although thou movest me against him to destroy him without cause. So, pretty much, the Lord out of his own mouth, he said Job is perfect. That's how Yahweh's own mouth. Is verse 4, right? And Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, yea, all that a man have he will give for his life. Verse 5. But put forth thine hand, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. So he pretty much saying, take everything from Job. I mean, you took his kids, but if you take everything, I guarantee you, he'll pretty much, stop serving you. Verse 6, Salakia. And the Lord said unto Satan, behold, he is in thy hand, but save his life, because again, Satan is under the authority of the Most High God. So, the Lord said, you can go ahead and afflict Job, but, save his life, meaning don't kill him. Verse 7. So went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord, and smote Job with sore boils from the sole of his feet unto his crown. And he took him a potsherd to scrape himself withal, and he sat amongst the ashes. Then said his wife unto him, thou doest remain retain thine integrity, curse God and die. So she's pretty much saying, why are you still serving the Lord after he just did this to you? Like, curse him and die. Verse 10. But he said unto her, thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall not receive evil? And all this Job did not sin with his lips. So it said Job did not sin with his lips. Now, but you got to understand, Job's mindset did change, and he did feel, some resentment towards the Lord because, pretty much of what happened, right? The Lord took everything away from him. And Job started to, look at the Lord a particular way, as if like, the Lord was, unjust for bringing a judgment upon him, and he's not, doing anything, wickedly. Let's get Job chapter 30 and 19 to prove that. It says, he cast me into the mirror, and I become like dust and ashes. I cry unto thee, and thou didst not hear me. I stand up, and thou regard me not. Thou become cruel to me with thy strong hand. Thou oppress yourself against me. Thou liftest me to the wind. Thou caused me to ride upon it and dissolve my substance. So the Lord, took, everything from Job. I mean, when you read about it, it took his, Lord smitten his oxen, etc., his cattle, all of that. Verse 24. Howbeit he would not stretch out his hand to the grave. Thou they cry in his destruction. Did I not weep for him that was in trouble? Was not my soul grieved for the poor? When I looked for good, then evil came unto me. And when I waited for light, there came darkness. So Job was pretty much boasting in his works, like, I helped the poor, right? I did what was right. I obeyed your commands, right? And pretty much Job is boasting in his works. And this is what I was talking about. This is a lot of things people, make a mistake of. And this is why, they're condemning even the wicked, thinking, people are certain 2/3 and they're not going to make it because, well, I'm keeping the commandments and you're not. As if the Lord can't take that spirit from me. We got to humble ourselves, right? And and this is Job being prideful against the Lord. Like, pride is the biggest thing amongst Israel, man. And Lord willing, this lesson, start making people to really, reflect on themselves. Isaiah 64:6. But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy as rag, and all do fade as a leaf, and our iniquities like the wind has taken us away. So Isaiah said, our righteousness are filthy as rags. Because you got to understand, the Lord is the one that justifies, not of us. We can keep every commandment. We can, keep all the works we can. But if the Lord doesn't want to justify us, he doesn't have to. And the thing is, too, Job was boasting about his works. Because the thing is, Job did, so much things more so, to preserve his life. But, that lack of faith, the Lord is something that he had. And, you got to couple faith and the commandments. Because once the Lord took everything from Job, Job started to lack faith. He was, sketchy on whether to deal with the Lord or not, right? And let me get one more scripture, because again, the Lord justifies us, right? Let me get Romans chapter 4 and verse 5. But to him that worketh not, but believe on him that justified the ungodly. The Lord does that. He justified the ungodly, which are us as well, even those that's in the truth. We're still the ungodly, because at the end of the day, no one is saved yet. Nobody know who's the 2/3. Nobody know who's going to make it until the Lord comes back. It says his faith is counted for righteousness. So your faith is counted for righteousness. And this is something Job lacked of. Verse 6, even as David also described the blessingness of the man unto whom God imputed righteousness without works, right? So the Lord could, deem somebody righteous without their works. So the Lord justified people, not our works, man. We have to stop boasting in that and thinking we can dictate on who's going to make it or not. We're not the Lord, man. So, pretty much let's go to Job chapter 31. Let's go to Job chapter 31. Actually, Job 32:1. Because again, Job was, prideful. Job 32:1. So these three men ceased to answer Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. So Job was righteous in his own eyes, and pretty much making it seem like the Lord was off for bringing a particular judgment upon him, and he wasn't doing anything wrong. And here goes Job again. Job 31:3. Is not destruction to the wicked and a strange punishment to the workers of iniquity, meaning sin? Salakia. Does he not see my ways and count all my steps? Right? If I have walked with vanity, or if my foot has hasted to deceit, let me be weighed in an even balance, that God may know my integrity. Right? So again, Job didn't feel like, the things that happened to him was right. He felt like the Lord was, not right for bringing that, upon him, that calamity. Let's get Job 38, right? And let me read this in the NLT. Job 38:1. It says, this is the Lord, he challenges Job this time. Then the Lord answered Job from the whirlwind. Who is this that questioned my wisdom with such ignorant words? Right? Who are you to question the Lord? Right? The Lord doesn't have to answer to anybody. He's the one that determines what's good and what's evil, what's right and what's wrong. Verse 3. Brace yourself like a man, because I have questions for you, and you must answer them. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you know so much. Right? So you're saying, like, Job, where were you when I was creating the earth? You was nowhere to be found. Who determined its dimension and stretch out the surveying line? Who supports its foundation? And who laid its cornerstone? The Lord did it. As the morning stars sang together, and all the angels shouted for joy. Who keep the sea inside boundaries as it bursts from the womb? So the Lord controls the sea, right? He laid the foundations of the earth, right? He created the angels. Let's keep going. And as it clothed with clouds and wrapped it in its thick darkness, the Lord creates darkness, right, etc. For I locked it behind barred gates, limiting the shores. So when the sea, notice the sea is never, overflowed, right? It's a perfect balance, right? It goes back to a particular current, right? Verse 11. I said, this far and no further will you come. Here your pride waves must stop. Have you ever commanded the morning to appear and caused the dawn to rise in the east? Right? Have you made daylight spread to the ends of the earth to bring an end to the night's wickedness? Because the Bible does say, at night, that's when the freaks come out, man. Notice at nighttime, that's when the most wickedness happens, right? So the Lord pretty much saying he's the one who controls the day. He's the one who controls the night, right? He's boasting in his works because he has every right to boast. We can't do what the Lord can do, man. The Lord can talk about how mighty he is and brilliant he is because that's just what he is. Let's go to Job, chapter 40. Keep going on that. Then the Lord said unto Job, do you still want to argue with the Almighty? You're God's critic, but do you have the answers? Then Job replied to the Lord and said, I am nothing. How could I ever find the answers? I will cover my mouth with my hand. I have said too much already. I have nothing more to say. Then the Lord answered Job from the whirlwind, brace yourself like a man, right? Because I have some questions for you and you must answer them. Will you discredit my justice and condemn me just to prove that you are right? Right? So are you going to condemn the Lord and his counsels, right, so that you can seem righteous? And that's what a lot of people do. Like, we have no business, even if it's bad, things might be rough. And it's just like, at times it might be a lot for us. But we can't just be, condemning the Lord because, a particular thing that might happen to us, because it could be, checking us and trying to get us right because he doesn't want to bring a serious judgment upon us that might take our lives. Let's keep reading. Are you as strong as God? Right? Can you cast thunders with a voice like his? All right, put on your glory and splendor, your honor and majesty. So God's mocking Job, right? You're so mighty, right? You got all this glory and majesty, right? And honor amongst men. Give vent to your anger. Let it overflow against the proud, right? Humiliate the proud with a glance. Walk on the wicked where they stand. So he's pretty much saying, cast down the wicked, all powerful Job. Bury them in the dust and imprison them in the world of the dead. Then even I will praise you, for your own strength would save you, right? So he said, you're so powerful. He's like, hey, save yourself, Job. And maybe if you can save yourself, you know what? I might boast in your power and your glory. So the Lord's mocking Job. Job 42:1, right? Then Job replied to the Lord, I know that you can do anything and no one can stop you. You asked, who is this questions my wisdom with such ignorance? It is I. I was talking about the things I knew nothing about, things far too wonderful for me. So Job started to humble himself. You said, listen, and I will speak, and I have questions for you, and you must answer them. I had only heard about you before, but now I have seen with my own eyes, right? So Job said he heard about the Lord, right, of how mighty the Lord is, right? But this is the first time he's had an experience with the Lord himself and seeing, the true side of the Lord. The Lord is extremely perfect, man. And we got to be justified by the Lord and not with ourselves. Verse 6, I take back everything I said, and I sit in the dust and ashes to show my repentance. So Job repented for being proud, right? Let's go to Job chapter. We're going to stay in this chapter. Let's jump down to the point. Verse 12, right? So because Job repented, the Lord, blessed him. It says, so the Lord blessed Job in the second half of his life, even more than the beginning. For now he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 teams of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. And he also gave Job 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. Right, so the Lord blessed Job, right, and gave him, everything back that he took from Job because Job humbled himself, right. And let me just get to the point. After Job pretty much got everything back, Job lived a full life and then he died. Verse 16. Job lived 140 years after that, living to see 4 generations, his children and grandchildren. Then he died, an old man who had lived a long, full life. See, after Job humbled himself, stopped being proud, right, said he doesn't know anything, and let the Lord dictate, what's right and what's wrong, and how Job should have conducted himself, and being meek, because he doesn't have the answers. Job is just a mortal man. He's flesh and blood. The Lord's understanding is out of this world. When the Lord makes a particular judgment, it's because he's aware of everything. The Lord sees everything. So his judgments are not evil, right? They're not evil, man. This is, let me get this back in the KJV Salakia. I just want to get the scripture. Psalms 147:5. Great is our Lord and of great power. His understanding is infinite. Right? The Lord has an infinite mind. His understanding is beyond our comprehension. So when he makes a particular judgment or particular decision, we have to respect that because his counsel, right, is full of wisdom, right? And that, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying, and I sincerely hope brothers and sisters continue to humble themselves, whether they're dealing with their brethren or dealing with the Lord, because the law says, the 2 biggest commandments is loving the Lord and then loving your neighbor, right? So that's something that we gotta harp on a lot, more so in these last days if we want mercy, from the Lord himself. With that, I want to say shalom.